One, two, 1, 2. You can still hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Good morning. Oh, man. Good morning. I'd like to welcome you to our January Shotsuki Hoyo monthly memorial and adult Dharma service. I'd like to begin by reading the names of those who passed away in the month of January. Haruko Ajari, Emi S. Calkins, Masumi Deguchi, Shichigoro Doi, Ichiro Endo, Fumiko Fuji, Arata Fujikawa, Chika Takasaki Fujikawa, Jin Fujikawa, Tom Fujimoto, Shizue Furuyama, Kenji Hayashida, Mei Hayashida, Jun Hiramatsu, John Hiramoto, Shizue Hirota, George Hoshide, Takeshi Ikeda, Dean Inokuchi, George Inoue, Masao Inoue, John Itoda, Kusuichi Kamada, Tamie Kamada, Tatsuo Kanagaki, Norikazu Kaneko, Chiyono Kanzaki, Tsurunosuke Kase, Marion Kato, Harry Kawabata, Kamenosuke Kawabe, Kanjuro Kawabe, Yoshiaki Kawaoka, Charles Kawasaki, Pauline Kawasaki, Sadano Kayatani, Ikuzo Kido, Yuri Kido, Hajime Kihara, Kihara ancestors, Hisao Kimura, Kojiro Kimura, Tanigusu Kimura, Toku Kimura, Suna Kinoshita, Yoshimi Kishi, Suyematsu Kitagaki, Shuntaro Kiyota, Yoshio Kobata, Konami Kobori, Shizue Koyama, Misato Kuramoto, Shigenobu Kuramoto, Sugie Kuroki, Tsuru Kua, Kuniko Masuda, Sueme Masuoka, Linda Matsutani, Urae Miyamoto, Fujie Mizusaki, Tomiko Mizuki, Sunao Mizuki, Kayo Murakami, Yoshita Murakawa, Leslie Muranishi, Jitsujiro Nakahara, Kichi Nakahara, Seijiro Nakanishi, Fusa Nakano, Chizuko Nakashima, Mieko Nakatani, Yoshie Nakatani, Yuao Dan Nakatani, Fujio Narasaki, Tagaichi Negi, Tomiko Neishi, Jakusho Nita, Violet Nobore, Dorothy Nomiyama, Dick Nomura, Frank Norimoto, Suikichi Ochikubo, James Ogawa, Kato Okai, Yuki Okawa, Kiku Okawa, Otono Okawachi, Yoshio George Oto, Joe Otsuka, John Raymer, Kikue Sakamoto, Faith Sasaki, Fumio Sasaki, Gunbei Sasaki, Hisaka Sasaki, Jingoro Sasaki, Ishino Sasaoka, Otome Satake, Yaoichi Satake, Tomie Satake, Ura Sawada, Ben Toshio Seiji, Shizuko Seiji, Toshio Shibata, David Shigematsu, Toku Shimamoto, Kyoko Shimao, Fumie Shinomoto, Kume Shiozaki, Wendy Shiroma, Miles Suda, Kenji Suzuki, Osamu Takahashi, Mary Takemoto, Hazue Takeda, Koki Takeda, Shizuko Tamori, Yoshihiro Tamori, Tomiko Tamura, Sumi Tanaka, Tamotsu Tani, Hisaichi Taniguchi, Mitsi Tanisawa, Tsuneno Tanisawa, Yoshiko Tanisawa, Chieko Tanita, Yoshie Tanita, Lily Yuriko Terusaki, Yoshiko Teraura, Fumi Torora, Sachiko Toyofuku, Hisajiro Tsuboi, Mareo Tsuchiya, Takenori Tsuchiya, Genkichi Tsujimoto, George Kumao Tsushima, Totaro Umemoto, Yukie Utsurogi, Hyozo Yamamoto, Katsuko Yamamoto, Kenneth Yamamoto, Masako Yamamoto, Ted Yamamoto, Kihei Yamane, Tsurukichi Yamane, Toshio Yamashita, Yosaku Yamashita, Toyotaro Yanagi, Tomo Yasukawa, Kami Yi, Motomi Yokomizo, Shelly Yuto, Toshiyuki Yuto. Next, we'll have Sutra chanting. Today, we're going to chant Sanbutsuge. It's in the small purple book. I don't know if you grabbed the small purple book, but it's on somewhere in here. Let's see. Page 22 in the small purple book. In the past, before pandemic, we used to come up and do incense offering during the chanting, but we aren't doing that right now. So you can offer incense after the service if you've not done so already. So we'll be chanting Sanbutsuge. Namanda, 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 namanda. Nichigatmani shuko enyo kai shitsu onpei yunyaku jumok nyorai yogen chosemunin shogaku dayon konu jippo kaimon shojin sanmai chie itoku munyo shushoke jintai zennen shobutsu hokai gujin no kugo gaitai mumyo yokunu seson yomu Nino shishi jin tokumunyo kukun kodai chie jinmyo komyo iso shindo daisen ganga sabutsu zai shoho kado shoji mi fugedatsu fuse joi kainin shojin nyoze sammai chie ijo go sei tokubutsu fugyo shigam isai kuku isadayam keshi ubutsu yakusen okuman munyo daisho shunyo goja kunyo isai shito shobutsu funyo gudo kensho fukyak hinyo goja shobutsu sekai bufu kake mushu setsudo
公明師匠変師匠国女税精進異人男女両が差別国土第一五種奇妙道場超絶国女内音任務闘争がと愛民到達一切実法来生心熱症状意図が国経楽安の個別神妙是が心象発願の非力少々欲実法生存知恵無限上領子孫知が信行権量心身食読中画行精進臨終不敬ナマンダブナマンダブナマンダブナマンダブナマンダブナマンダブがんにしくどく平等性祭道本母大心往生安楽南無阿弥陀仏南無阿弥陀仏南無阿弥陀仏南無阿弥陀仏南無阿弥陀仏。
Okay, thank you everyone for joining us for our January Shotsuki Hoyo monthly memorial and adult Dharma service. I was thinking today, you know, the Shotsuki service, I'm going to take this off. The Shotsuki service is a time, so that list that I read, right, this list of names of people, of relatives of many of you, and just thinking about, I think for many of you, you knew the people whose names I read. Okay? But that's not always the case. Maybe with your children, your grandchildren coming in, they may have never met the people whose names I read. And so I was just kind of thinking about that, and how this morning I'm taking my shower and I just realized, I never met my paternal grandparents, never met them in person, right? My father's father died when my dad was 3. So that was 1932. And my father's mother met my mom. And, my paternal grandmother and grandfather were white Anglo-Saxon, right? And my mom was Japanese. And so I was just kind of thinking about that, right? They probably must have met in 1969. So my Japanese mother and my white grandmother met. And I was just thinking, sometimes that's 50 years ago, right? 50 plus years ago. And at that time, it wasn't as common, right, to have multiracial, interracial marriage like that. And so I was just kind of thinking about that, because I know I've heard stories recently of, someone who's actually younger than me, who's half Japanese, half white. And apparently there was animosity on both sides, right, towards the other. And I was wondering, with my grandmother, I wonder if it was like that. And I don't think so. I think, I don't think there's pictures, but my dad was 40 when he got married. So one thing is, maybe my grandmother was kind of happy. Finally, he found someone, right? Finally getting married, at that time. Things are different now, right? But at that time must have been, a relief. And I think that it was okay, and I was born, I think, before she passed, but she passed soon after I was born. So 1970, 1971. And so just kind of interesting to think about that. Unfortunately, my father and mother have also passed, so I can't ask them, right? That's something I would love to ask, right? What was that meeting like? Well, Dad, what was it like when you took Mom to meet your mom, right? Those are the kind of stories that you don't get a chance to ask after someone passes, right? But that's maybe what I like. But one of the things I like about Shotsuki is that we keep these people in mind every year. For each of you, you may think about them more than this, right? But this is kind of a special occasion to think about these people who've passed away, right? And so bringing that up, I hope that, or not that I hope, but if the opportunity arises to talk about these people who've passed away, I say take it. Take that opportunity to talk about these people. Right? Maybe not right this instant, but you go home later, or you think about them. Maybe their actual passing date is later this month. And maybe if that comes to mind and you can think about them, right? That's what I really like about our memorial services too. This is like this group memorial, the Shotsuki, right? So everyone who passed away in January, but also on this list, there's several 13th year, 25th year, 17th year, 50th year. There's a 50th year this month, right? So, wow, it's actually 49 years later because of the way we count, but still, it's basically almost 50 years ago. Wow. Saying their name, thinking about that. Wow, they've been gone that long? For that person, maybe they'll be like, it feels like only 30 years, right? Or whatever, the way we think of time. And it's like, yeah, it's like 10 years ago. And it's like, it was 25 years ago, right? Our memories are interesting, right? But that's another thing where this keeping track of these years, right? And keeping track of this passage of time, keeping track of time as we're remembering our loved ones, right? Is kind of a special thing about Buddhism. I think there might be other traditions that do it as well, but I don't think Christianity does it. The Judeo-Christian religions, I don't think necessarily do it. So to be able to have this special occasion, right, to remember them. And maybe that sounds weird, right? Special occasion, but that's what Shotsuki means. Right? And I tell this a lot, and I'm sorry if you've heard it before, but when I started, because I didn't grow up Buddhist, and I started my internship here, over 20 years ago, right? And so with Reverend Yamoka, and I remember him reading the names, And I knew, oh, each month it's usually the first Sunday, right? It's not this year, but often it's the first Sunday. So I thought it meant Shotsuki, right? Shot like hajimete, like first, starting, and then ski is month. So I thought it was called Shotsuki because it was like the first Sunday of the month. But no, it's not. It's Shotsuki. It's a long O. And the sho means auspicious. It's a good meaning. It's a positive meaning, right? So it's auspicious month. The auspicious month, January, when your loved one passed away. And I think from our normal way of thinking, it's like, huh? That's a good thing? Isn't that loss? Doesn't death mean loss? And it's something to try and forget. I think is a very Western American kind of view. Right? But that's part of Buddhism, is these different perspectives. Looking at things from a different perspective. Right? So that, of course, it still may bring us sadness. Each death is different. And I know that some are tragic, right? Some too soon, right? Some due to illness or whatever. And so it's not to erase that memory either, right? We acknowledge the sadness, and yet to think about it from another perspective too. Wow, this is an auspicious month. And I think Buddhism would say yes, right? This is a time when you lost a loved one, but they were a loved one, right? You had this person in your life. Wow, this opportunity to think about them, right? This opportunity to reflect on them, to reflect on their life, to reflect on your own life, to reflect on that relationship, right? To think about the impact that they had. So even with people that you may not know, this group, I think probably everyone knows. If you're here for a certain person, you knew them, right? But if you had like sometimes the private memorial, right? And if it's even like a 7th year memorial, someone could have been born since then, right? So very often when we have memorial services, there are people who never met them, but still the impact, right? That they still had impact even on these new lives. So for me, never having met my paternal grandparents, still what deep impact they had on me, right? They're still a part of my life. They're still a part of who I am because of the impact they had on my father, right? And that impact that they had on my father's life affected me, right? The relation to, imagine, maybe you can. I can't. I can only imagine losing my father at age 3, right? And it was 1932, so that's in the middle of the Depression. That couldn't have been easy, right? And that must have had such an impact on my father, right? And that his relationship with his mother, right? And then his relationship with my mother, right? And all these different connections. I'll just share briefly, so I don't end too soon. I was also thinking about my maternal grandparents, who I did get to meet. Unfortunately, well, I have a picture of my grandmother and grandfather, and I think it's my grandmother holding me as a baby. So I met them when I was a baby, right? I must have been pretty newly born, I think, like within a month or so, or maybe it was even pretty newborn, right? And there's pictures of me as a baby and my parents going to Meiji Jingu, the Meiji Shrine in Tokyo, right? So they took me to Meiji Shrine. And so I have the picture in my office of my parents, my mom holding me. It's my mom and me and my dad. Okay? But later on at my uncle's house in Japan, I found a picture of my mom and my grandmother holding me at that same time, that same event, right? So it's neat for me, even later, even in my 30s or 40s, finding that picture and realizing, oh, wow, right? My grandparents met me as this little baby. They didn't meet me again until I was maybe a teenager, right? And I was able to go visit, and my grandfather had dementia by that point. So, I saw him, but didn't really get to connect with him. And I just want to share that. I have to share this one. I went back in college when I was 20, and I'd been studying Japanese, or trying anyway, but I go to this village up in Iwate. I could not understand a word my uncle was saying, could not understand what my grandmother was saying for the most part, but we're sitting at the table at nighttime. So my grandmother says, change the channel. And I remember they put up on TV Knight Rider. You know that TV show with Hasselhoff, David Hasselhoff, right? So they put Knight Rider on, but it was in Japanese. It was overdubbed. And so like we have the TV on him, and somebody says, it's in Japanese, he can't understand that. And I guess I understood this much. And my grandmother said, of course he can, he's Japanese. No, I couldn't, right? I couldn't understand Knight Rider in Japanese, right? But wow, I have this, that's like, oh, the other one is when I was in 7th or 8th grade, going to visit, and we're gonna leave, and my grandmother comes in the room I was staying. And she just starts talking to me, talking. To this day, I have no idea what she said. No one else was in the room. Was she telling me family history? Was she telling me gambate, like do your best? I have no idea, right? All I know is she gave me 10,000 yen. I was like, yes. It's like I gammoned through like listening, right? And got the 10,000 yen. So as a kid, that was great. As an adult, part of me regrets not understanding what she said, but another part of me is like, it's okay. I had that opportunity, right? Even though I couldn't understand what she was saying intellectually, wow, my grandmother talking to me. In hindsight, that was really special. Really, really special opportunity, even though I didn't understand. It's kind of like, I don't care. I've lost so much family history from my parents dying 20 years ago and my never really meeting my grandparents. I'm okay with it. But maybe I can say to you, if you have the opportunity, pass on some of those stories, talk to your kids, grandkids. I know it's hard. I know they probably don't care, right? Or it seems like they don't care, right? But each opportunity to say even just a little bit, right? Planting those seeds. Speaking as someone who was given seeds and probably just tossed them away. What's this, right? That was me, right? And yet in hindsight, realizing, wow, I wish I had held on to those seeds, right? I wish I'd been able to understand their value at the time. But from another perspective, no, they are valuable, right? Those seeds were planted. The impact of people met, people we were unable to meet, right? And yet still deep impact. Right? And realizing too, that each one of us has impact on so many people, right? That's the next step. Wow, I was impacted by these people. Whoa, what kind of impact do I have? Right? And it's not always positive, but from a Buddhist perspective, I think an awareness of this is a good thing. Right? From a Buddhist perspective, an awareness, some kind of awareness of these people whose names we read is a good thing. Right? Some of these people, maybe nobody's left. That's why I hate to take names off this list. I don't care if there's no relatives left. I like reading the names. Right? I like saying this name out loud, even once a year. No one else says it. There's no living relatives left, maybe. Right? But we can still say their name, acknowledging the impact that they had, right? Acknowledging their life. So much more special, wonderful, an opportunity to have had, to know these people, to remember these people. And so maybe reflecting on that, this auspicious month of January, right? Losing a loved one can be the most difficult thing we go through. But as time goes on, right? 17th year, 25th year, 50th year, right? That we can think about them, right? Go beyond the sadness, not only the sadness, but recognizing this deep impact that they had. So I want to thank you very much for joining us for our Shotsuki Hoyo. Thank you for coming at our new time. You like the 11 o'clock time? I know at least one person likes it, 2 people. Okay. It was better. It was easier than I thought. I think it went pretty well. So I want to really thank you for joining us. Let's conclude the Dharma message with Gassho. On this opportunity of the January Shotsuki monthly memorial, this auspicious month, let us reflect deeply on our loved ones and their impact they had on all of us. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namanda. 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 Okay, let's, you don't have to stand up, but we can sing Gatha Ondok-san 2. If you have the book, it's in there if you don't know the words. Ondok-san 2 should be on page 76 in the small purple book if you want to sing along. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namanda. Namanda. Okay, we got Robert on the line. So let's have announcements. Speaker, headphones.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. Happy New Year. Thank you very much for coming to our Shotsuki service today here at the Buddhist Church of Oakland. My name is Robert Noguchi. I have a couple of announcements to make. First, I'd like to thank Reverend Bridge for his Dharma talk and officiating this morning's service, Reverend Michael Endo for his assistance, Steve Tedosaki for playing the organ, the Host 9 group, chaired by Norman Yoshida, for providing hospitality for those attending at the church today, and the Zoom crew who make the YouTube presentation possible. Thank you all very much. A couple of announcements here. Next Sunday, the 15th, is our Honko service, which will be held at 10 a.m. in person and online. So you can either come to the church or join us online through YouTube. Also for members of the church, the annual general meeting will be Sunday, February 5th at 11 a.m. following the 10 a.m. service. So let's move on to a couple of announcements. First, at the Southern Alameda County Buddhist Church, Forever Young, a reunion dance party will be held next Saturday, January 14th from 7 to 10 p.m. Music from the 70s to 2000, performances by DJ Taka, who's actually Reverend Takashi Miyagi, the resident minister there, and Reverend Bridge will also be there to perform, as well as other DJs and special guests. Light appetizers, beverages, and dancing. $25 Eventbrite ticket for those 18 and over. So that's next Saturday, January 14th, over at SACBC down in Union City. Saturday, March 11th, the Benefits of Life of Gratitude, Benefits of Shinbuism Part 1, be held. This is presented by the Buddhist Churches of America, CBE, Center for Buddhist Education. The guest speaker will be Reverend Dr. Kenji Akahoshi. And actually, I noticed that he put an article in the Bushin, the BCO Bushin, so you can take a look at that short article by Sensei. That'll be on Saturday, March 11th, and from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Pacific time. And you can register this information is on the BCO website. Also, this is something that came to my attention this morning. The Friends of Lincoln Square Park is working with the city of Oakland to raise funds to build a 22,000 square foot recreation center to replace an old overcrowded facility. As part of this project, it is seeking to interview people who grew up playing at the park or went to Lincoln School next door. Many of you know this is just up around the corner from the church. It has many Chinese American interviewees, but wants to interview the Japanese Americans, Filipino Americans, and others who were part of the scene. To find out more about the campaign, visit this website. This is friendsoflincolnsquarepark.org. If you'd like to be interviewed or want to find out more about the project, there's more information on the website. You can go ahead and contact them about that. Going to the Buddhist Churches of America website, BCA, BuddhistChurchesofAmerica.org, the Southern District Center for Buddhist Education, CBE, and the Institute of Buddhist Studies, IBS, will have a Winter Pacific seminar on January 28th called Hope from Shinran's Perspective. It's an in-person and virtual event in English and Japanese, presented by Professor Jessica Main and Reverend Yasushi Kigoshi. That'll be Saturday, January 28th, from 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. Pacific time. And it's going to be held at LA Betsuin down in Los Angeles, but of course you can join them virtually. The information's on the BCA website. Going back to the BCO website, BuddhistChurchofOakland.org, there are a number of ways that you can donate. There's a donation support page and a number of buttons, as you can see here, ways that you can donate to the church. We appreciate all donations received, and thank you so much for your support. And that's all I have. Thank you very much again for coming. Enjoy the sunny day while we have it before the next storm comes in, and I'll send it back to Sensei.
Thank you, Robert. This will conclude our January Shotsuki Hoyo monthly memorial and adult Dharma service. Please join me in Gassho. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo. And you can come up and offer incense if you haven't had a chance already.